Hi, everyone. The assignment this week for your the lab portion of the course of the lesson this week is on indexing. What indexing is, if you're not familiar with it, is that's where people go in and type up data that is found on various records, census records or draft records or whatever. If you've ever gone into Family Search or other uh, websites to do research, and you put put your name in or your ancestor's name in and typed it and found records, the reason you find anything online is because at some point somebody sat down on a computer and they indexed that record. They went and they read the handwriting on the draft card or the census record or whatever, and they typed that information in to their computer, and it was ultimately verified and then loaded up into the system. So this is the process of helping other people as we're indexing more and more records. We're taking more and more genealogical records that are handwritten or typewritten or whatever, or just available on paper or just available in microfilm, and we're making it so people can search those electronically and helping other people find their ancestors, which is a kind of a neat thing. So we're going to split this up into 2 or 3 videos just to give you an idea of what you're supposed to do, because the instructions here on this assignment are a little skimpy. So the first step, that's what you're supposed to do with this assignment. Just so you know, if I didn't mention before, you're supposed to spend 3 hours on this particular project on indexing. If you're new to it, it says here to click on this link. That'll take you to Family Search. And just as a basic overview here, you're then supposed to do a guided tour, go through that, which is submitting a sample card in just for practice. And then you go in to do some real batches. But let's show you first here in this video. We'll talk about the guided tour. So if you click, it says click here and sign into Family Search. If you're already signed into Family Search, it will take you to this screen. There's My Batches up at the top and has some other information on it. If you're not signed in yet, you'll get taken to a sign-in screen. You just put in your name and password, username and password, and you'll get in here. If you want to come back to this sometime later, you find you like it. A lot of people really enjoy this, and you're in Family Search somewhere else. Then what you want to do, say we're in Family Tree or something, and you say, I want to do some indexing. What you want to do is you click on this indexing link at the top and then web indexing, and that'll take you to the screen that we're at. Now to find that guided tour, on this menu bar, you click on Help Resources, and then down here on the right column, there is the guided tour. Now this screen that'll pop up is going to be a little busy, so let me explain some of it to you. This first part is just start the tour. Don't worry about it. The information you enter won't be saved. One warning they have is this may be too small for a tablet or a phone or whatever, so you're going to have to work with that. But I'm doing this on a desktop or a laptop, but so that works just fine. You won't see all of this busy stuff when you actually get into a real batch, but this tour is giving you a step-by-step instructions on what to do over here, and then there's project instructions here that I believe will also show up anytime you do a batch. And it's important that you always look at the project instructions. Now I know that our habit is that we always want to just jump into whatever it is, software or whatever. Nobody wants to read the manual. Nobody wants to look at the instructions. Let's just jump in. But the project instructions are very important to look at because it's going to tell you things, whether you should spell the name out altogether or use abbreviations, whether you should, what you should type, what you should not type, what the records are about, and so forth. So for example, this one is talking about World War II draft cards from Georgia, and they're going to focus on recording names, dates, and places. Gives you a sample image you can click on, and it'll show you a big version of that. Right, let's do that. So here is an example. This person has no middle name. I wrote none in there. It shows the age, place of birth, the state, date of birth, where they resided, and so forth. So that's all real great information for someone doing research. So let's get out of the instructions. Now, one thing you should know is that this box here is hiding the control panel for controlling the screen. You just look at this image and say, I can't even see it, it's too small. There's some buttons here for controlling the screen, increasing the image size and so forth. Just know if you have a mouse on your device, you can just use or I suppose if it's a touch screen, that you can use your fingers to do it. But with the mouse, you can roll the mouse wheel and it'll make it bigger. So the fact that the controls are hidden are not a problem. Okay, so what you see here is it says the first step you should determine is whether an image should be indexed. What that's talking about is this an image that actually has information on it, or is it like a title page or some sort of a fancy page for calibrating the focus, or just the front page of the book, or something that where there's nothing. If there's nothing on that page which really needs to be indexed because there's no personal information on it, then you would say no to this question here. Otherwise, if there's people's information on it, then you say yes. Now, anytime you see any question, there will always be a little question mark button. I recommend the first time you go through any indexing type project, always go in and click this question mark because it'll give you the exact instructions for that particular question. So here, and I just explained all that. So here, this does have people's information on it, so we'll hit next. And then it says put the information in. So we should check what it talks about. Given names, make sure to type them in. Don't include titles like Mr. or Junior. Notes such as none were often included. We saw that before, that it said none for middle name on that sample. That you don't include those in this particular project. And here it says don't index the name from the signature. You index the name that's written here. As a genealogist, I would probably prefer the signature, thinking that's correct, but we're not doing genealogy research. We're doing indexing, which is typing in what the record shows, even if it might not be correct. So let's start. So we go Holmes, Quincy is given names. I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through the other instructions in these question marks, but you should look at those each time, the first time you do work with a particular record set. So surname is Miller, residence town, here's the residence, town is Savannah, residence county is Chatham, residence state is Georgia. One thing to note with this sample thing, it's kind of nice. If you got it right, you can click back on something and they'll say you got it right. That's correct. Residence state, this is one example why it's good to read those instructions, because I would be inclined, it says GA, I would be inclined to type in Georgia just because I know GA means Georgia. But they're saying, wait a minute, are you sure that's what you want to do? Because if I look in the instructions, this particular batch or record set, they say don't expand abbreviations, don't correct spelling. So I shouldn't have done that. I should have just typed in GA. And so if I go back, it says that's correct now. So, okay, birth month is July. Now just so you know, I tried to type in and that didn't work. This is using a drop-down list. So July, I'm going to go, you have to pick it from the list. Birthday is 17. Birth year is 1900. Birth town or county is Spencer. And birth state is actually spelled out here, so we will North Carolina. So then you have two options, create entry to or submit batch. If you were looking at some records that had multiple lines of data, like a page of an index page or something that had a whole bunch of people on one page, then you would create a new entry on that page for each person. But this sort of record that's a one image per person, you're done. You don't have to create another entry. There's not another person to index. So you would, in this case, it's submit batch because it's a one document batch, but typically on a batch, most batches will have multiple documents. You would hit next to go to the next document, but here we'll just submit batch. And so it did a quality check, didn't find any issues. Would you like to submit your work now? Sure. Submit batch, and you're done. So that's a test drive, and that's how that works. And so when you're done with that, and we go back to web indexing, in the next video, I'll talk about what to do for a real batch. So that's it for this one.